Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle. My co-host is Rachel Santiza. We have two special guests that we will introduce in a minute. We got our latest analytics, and this sort of relates to the war that's going on in Ukraine. We recently have had 85 views or listens in Russia and 22 in Ukraine.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what I was thinking, that maybe we could make a little political statement here, because of the fact that Putin has cut off free news sources in Russia, that we could, so you people watching, there were 30 in Moscow. If you're watching, everything that you see on state TV is not necessarily true about what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Putin won't call it a war, but it's a war, and thousands of innocent civilians are being slaughtered in Ukraine right now by Russian troops. So it's a sad situation over there, and hopefully somebody in Russia will be watching this at some point in time.
Yeah, that's interesting that they're listening.
I don't know if their sources are cut off for something like this or not. So
yeah.
Anyway,
Wow.
That's the only serious thing we're talking about today. This is one of the most watched and listened to podcasts dealing with addiction and recovery. So you have invited two guests here.
I have. I am invited two very special guests, two very important people in my life. This is Sarah Kappos and Phil Millerberg. And they're important people in my life. I've known them for a long time. And more importantly, they do some really incredible work, creative arts work in our community. So they do a program, it's Own It. And so without further ado, Sarah and Phil. Welcome.
What is Own It?
You know, we've been trying to come up with a concise answer to that question, but we're artists, and so the answer is always different. And sometimes it's abstract and long-winded, and sometimes we're like, yeah, it's this. The mission statement on our website says the evolution of truth amplified. The evolution of truth is that artistic creative process where you're always kind of questioning your stories. As an artist, it's easy to make the same shit over and over again because you're good at it, but it's like not really true anymore.
Yeah.
And so to keep pushing that and like let it evolve and remain true is really important to us. Phil and I met, go ahead.
You both are in recovery, right? And somebody watching this who doesn't understand might wonder, what does artistic expression have to do with recovery from addiction?
Yeah, well, honesty is such a big piece of recovery, no matter which modality that you're going with. And so to let that honesty evolve is kind of like that evolution of truth. Phil and I, when we first hatched the idea, we talked about feeling frustrated with the regurgitated one-liners and the stagnation that can happen. And so we wanted to create a space that was more evolving than that. So, and we figured that art was a great way to do that. And so then amplified just means with a microphone. So pretty much everything we do has to do with the amplification of your voice using a microphone. And the microphone is an important part, right? Because we create stuff, we write stuff, whatever, music, poetry, stories, and it feels somewhat incomplete unless it's heard. So that microphone is really, it kind of like brings things full circle. It's not just about the artist, it's also about the audience or the listener, and that synergy that happens when you get to hear someone. That's the not so short answer of what Own It is.
Yeah, that only took a minute and a half.
Oh,
I
good.
know.
Phil, how can
Yeah.
you do? What kind of answer you got today?
Sometimes, you pontificate. Is that the word?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because I'm sitting here and like we do our own podcast, but now there's like lights and video, and so I'm just kind of like, and I got this like rush of like, whoa, there's like people watching me. But I think Own It, what kind of makes it different is that a lot of times people in a lot of people in recovery are artistic, resourceful. You have to be,
Very,
right? If you're
yes.
still alive in recovery after a while, it's because you're resourceful and you figured out how to do so. And so what we have found is like if we put a stage and then people come, it typically is their very first time doing it, maybe ever, and then usually always sober. So it's this like it's this new synergy that's created almost just by default because it's never been done before. And what also kind of makes Own It unique is like you could just anyone can put on a performing arts event and it happens all the time without much rehearsal. But we always have a theme, and then we do a raw group, which is reading and writing, where we meet with everyone that's in it to build the, because so much of recovery is about unity, community. And so we try to instill that in the show by, having 3 or 4 of these raw groups before we even do the show. And it creates something unique. It creates camaraderie. So,
It also means that they'll actually show up on the day of the
usually,
show.
Yeah.
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 Because this community can be, who knows, like week to week, day by day, like where they're at emotionally or like on the planet. And so it's like, you're going to be there, right? Like, I think it helps with that, like, consistency of putting in the time and the effort to be on the stage, because it's hard to get them there. And I feel like we really support them actually getting there. That's, I think, my role and Phil's role is artistic support, emotional support, because it's hard. And so it's not just like, hey, show up on this day and perform this thing. It's like, I get that it's scary, that you're going to doubt yourself, that you're going to change your mind, that shit's going to come up. Like, as you're writing, you may think you're writing about one thing, and then all this other stuff arises, and so we really try to help let that creative process affect them and like change their perception.
Right, because you need that trust. If people are going to share this piece of them, there needs to be trust behind it and that vulnerability when they are on this stage. What about individuals that have stage fright or don't feel that they're creative? Because I've done Own It and I felt that way.
Yeah.
How do you support them?
Well, everyone, I think some of the best stories have been the stories of people that believe that.
Where they're scared.
They're scared, or they don't believe they're an artist, or they're... and I think sometimes they're the best because they haven't been polishing an art. Most art is it's performed. So there's that performance nature to art. And what we really try to get to is the core of the thing. And so if you got all this performance around it, sometimes it's hard to break through that with like a polished artist. So oftentimes someone will show up and they're not that way, and they're scared, but they show up because they're scared. And like it's like, yeah, like in sales, usually you want a guy that's never done sales before, right? So you can kind of teach them how to sell. And it's kind of similar on stage. It's like, here's this person that's never done this before, and we can kind of walk them through that and find the truth, because it's called Own It. And it's not second nature to own shit.
No.
As a recovering person, right?
And you brought up the point that most of the time people are sober, okay? And that reminded me when I was in treatment, they had one night where you had to do, I think they made us get up and dance fast or something. I was never secure doing that except when I was drunk.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're sober, they're asking you to do this, and that was true with everybody in the room, and it was like, oh hell, what am I going to do?
Well, I think what you were touching on is we accentuate the benefit of that. So like, yeah, you're scared, and that's beneficial. Like, yeah, that means that you really care about it. Like, that means that you're really alive in it. It means that you're really like, the stakes are high, and so all of those things are positive. So they arrive and they're like, I'm scared. And we're like, great, good. Like, that's so good that you're scared, because that's going to make that synergy also with the audience that much more powerful. Like, if the audience can feel that a person at the microphone is scared, then what they're going to do is energetically, and it like gives me goosebumps to talk about it, because energetically they're going to rise up to meet them.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be sitting back in their chair like whatever. Like they're going to actually lean in, and they're going to send their energy, and you felt this before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like they're going to send it to that person at the microphone and be like we're with you, we got you, we care about what you're saying, and that is palpable in a show, and that's something that matters so much to me, is creating a space where we're only listening, where there aren't distractions, like the whole audience is with the person at the microphone because what they're doing really matters. And I don't ever want to have a show where that is not the most important thing. And so far, I feel like we've done a pretty good job. We had kind of a funky venue once or twice, but for the most part, I feel like we look at every aspect of a show so that synergy is created, and we won't do it at a place where that isn't going to occur, where it's not set up that way.
Describe a show. We keep talking about shows and own it and everything. Describe what you do. I've watched you at a couple of things, but just describe it.
Well, it's like you enter into a. Hopefully, it's like a grungy scene, right?
It's
It's like
definitely an
there's
easy
shit
address.
on the walls, not actual shit,
Yeah.
but like they're cracked, and like that maybe they didn't paint the whole thing, or maybe there was a lot of paint there and now it's not, and there's like shitty chairs and the seats falling off. Like you want to enter and feel like there's no expectation. It's
Right.
just like, I'm just coming in here
It's
to
not
hang
a
out.
Broadway stage.
Yeah,
And it's not a
exactly.
church. Well, actually, our next show is going to be at a church.
But it's a cool
Shit.
church.
Hopefully, it's a cool church, man. I don't know.
It is.
Like, there are not, like, fluorescent overhead lights, right? The lighting really
Lighting
matters. The
matters,
lighting
no.
is dim.
Yes.
There's, like, it's stage lit. There's music. There's the DJ. Josh is on the stage. So there's already, like, energy in the air. It's not going to be stale. You're not going to walk in and feel like you need to, like,
Sterile
fold
is
your
the word we
arms or
don't want.
something. Yeah, we don't want sterile.
Yeah, and then, you sit down and there's lots of talking and chattering about nothing because people feel comfortable. And then eventually we're like, hey, it's time to sit down. And then we have to go outside because people are smoking and they're socializing. There's like 30 people outside, and it's like, it's hard to get them inside. And then they sit down, and then lights go down, and then everyone's quiet. And then Sarah appears, and she's such a polarizing character, right? And it's not because she's super loud or anything. It's because I don't know what it is. She's got some magical polarity
Charisma.
thing. Charisma.
Absolutely.
Good word. And she usually wears, like a dress that's different, that accentuates who she is. And so you're just like, okay, there's Sarah. And everyone wants to hear from Sarah. That's what makes her such a great host. And then she'll say stuff like, we always start a show with thanking everybody. We always we try to remember to thank where we come from, the roots of 12-step. And then we thank the venue, and we just bring up the first person. And the way that our old venue was, it was so dark except for like these like multicolored spotlights. So the scene was just set. I mean, it was just like the vibe was perfect, And then the show goes on, and then she says stuff, and then sometimes I'll get up there and fumble around. Like, it's the dynamic, That's part of it too. Is
So the whole thing is ad lib, not scripted.
it is scripted.
It is scripted.
Yeah, I mean, there's actual performances that they've been working on, but
Okay.
she'll float in between, right? Because you need that contrast of script and freestyle, and that's what I do too. I don't write what I'm going to say necessarily. I just get up there, and sometimes I'll say shit, and it's...
Well, each show has a theme, and so the theme helps organize everything kind of around that theme. So we've done shows based on stories of fatherhood, actually, that were all male parents, which I thought was really cool. We try to choose themes that are going to push our understanding and push our audience's understanding. So we've had stories of homelessness. I learned a lot in that show. We did a show... What other themes have we even had?
Riot.
We did a riot show right before the pandemic started. We had a show about the supernatural, which turned out to be actually a really spiritual show, which was cool. I didn't expect. I thought it would be more like ghost stories, but actually people talked about like the metaphysical reality, and so like the theme of each show really kind of drives the energy of it and what I say in between. And so I feel like we all actually, everyone who's at the show kind of leaves with this deeper understanding of whatever the theme is, where it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about that. And that was really one of our goals in the beginning in creating the show, was that we wanted to expand our understanding and like the capacity of the recovery community to challenge our ideas. Like that's something that I feel like art at its best really does, where it's like, okay, I get that you've been in this safe place, but Phil and I lately have been talking about like what's beyond the beginning. In the beginning of recovery, you have to be in this little box where you're like, okay, here's what's safe and here's what I can do. And it's really important to move beyond the beginning so that you're not scared.
Yeah.
So I feel like we do that.
What is the importance? So I know, and I truly appreciate what Own It does, what it's done for me, right? What you two have done for me. I also know that you come in to Odyssey House, right? And you bring so much good into the clients' lives. What is the importance to bring creative arts and to come in and to push those limits to enhance people to share their stories? What happens when you push past those fears, or, to get on stage? What's the importance of using your voice, to own your voice? Like, why even do it?
Well, I think one of the obvious simple answers is to find out that it's not that bad. It's really right.
It's
like,
true.
you can
but
do
it
it.
Feels like it is,
right. You're thinking about it, right?
Right.
Your fear of it is like all this, blah, blah, blah. But then you do it, and it takes 5 minutes or less, and then you're like, oh wow, I'm okay. And not only am I okay, but like I actually feel better. So I mean, that's just a simple, like, facing fear. Anytime you face fear, right?
Right.
But specifically with creativity and with art, I feel like there's this real need to exercise that.
And this isn't a fear that's going to end up killing you.
No.
It's just,
Right.
I was scared. I got stage fright.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't so bad.
And how
Yeah.
does that benefit recovery? A lot of people don't correlate creative arts and recovery, but it is so necessary.
Yeah.
So how do you correlate that?
Well, it's funny, I just went and spoke at a place yesterday, and I was kind of swimming around in that question, like asking it to myself, like fresh. And it was funny because I don't know if I was a very good speaker, so I'm like, what am I even doing here? What are we even talking about? And but what I remembered when I was swimming around in that was like that internal claustrophobia of like in the chest and in the head and like maybe in your stomach, where it's like there really is all of this creative energy that wants to come out, that has been responded to with drugs and alcohol and any other like evasive behavior where you're just like, I have to like escape.
Yeah.
And so that stuff is actually so valuable. Like that's passion. That's the thing that drives the artist. And so I didn't have very many people teaching me that when I was getting sober. And so I floundered around for a while before I was like, okay, I can use this. This doesn't mean I'm crazy or there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
This means that like there's some stuff that wants to be expressed, and there are modes, mediums that it can be expressed, and that it's actually not bad. And it's so important to understand that it's not bad. And actually people can relate to it, they can benefit from it, they can be inspired by it if you can funnel it into one of these artistic channels. And there's a great need for that. I mean, that's why there are so many artists who, like there's the 27 Club, because they commit suicide before they can understand how to not have that stuff destroy them. And anybody who's spent some amount of time around people in recovery, how many artists there are.
Yeah, and I found that strange because I can go to our houses, and in the old days before the pandemic, and there were people that had beautiful paintings, and they wrote great poetry.
Right.
I mean, are people in recovery or in addiction, are they more artistic than the general public?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I know that.
I've just found a lot of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Super
my
creative.
community is in recovery. I find that most are creative, and that's what's cool about Own It is like, there it is, like people that didn't even know, or Odyssey. So we take a class into Odyssey every, each house once per month. Yeah, and so there's 50, sometimes 50 people in that class, and we send them a video before. So they have a video, they watch it, and then they respond to the video, and that's the class,
Oh.
right?
Okay.
And so every client is, or whoever is involved is, they hopefully write something and respond to it. So just that act of creating something maybe pulls somebody out of a thing that maybe they're in. And our whole idea for our class is there's no feedback. So you can come because, treatment is specifically about feedback, like where you're screwing up, or where you need to improve, or your behaviors, that's old behavior, drugs, rehab, relapse. And so we try to facilitate an hour where they can just be creative with no feedback. We even say that, like, there's no feedback. You can like snap or clap or say thank you or whatever. And so, I find that, yes, resourcefulness equals creativity equals artistic. So, that said, I think that most people in recovery are artists.
Well, you know what else happens
Artistic.
too when we meet with them for that hour? It's kind of like a performance hour. And the other thing that happens pretty consistently is that you'll have people who their song has been memorized in their heart and in their body for 5 years, and no one's ever heard it. Then they're like, I wrote this when I was in prison, or I wrote this when I was on the street. And I mean, they'll have like whole verses like completely memorized. And that's another thing that gives me goosebumps. I should have worn like a short sleeve shirt so you guys can see.
Show
when
us
I
the
was-
goosebumps.
When I was talking about something that I really mean, because, and that's that microphone part that's so important, is like yeah, they're creative and they have this thing that they've made and that like really matters to them, but no one's ever heard it. And so we try to make a space where it can be heard. And then the whole room, they're like, oh, I've been sitting in group with Stanley for 4 weeks and I had no idea that
Right.
he was also like that. And then they can care about each other more, I think. Like there's this mutual appreciation and respect that happens when you get to hear someone else's, even if it's not that good. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
even have to be that
Maybe
good.
it's better if it's
The
not.
effort, I know.
But
So you
you're
can
like,
celebrate each other.
Yeah.
but you're like, look at you go! Wow, like you are singing. I'm still too scared to sing in a microphone.
Really?
Yeah. No.
Wow.
I think you hit on something. You were talking about why art and recovery are so important, and it's that connection, piece. That you can't really drum that up. If you hear someone singing and they're singing their heart out and they're not very good, like it's hard not to empathize
That's true.
with that, right? And
Yeah.
so that
God,
there's
at
all
least
these,
he's doing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
the
exactly.
courage part.
And if you're too scared to do it, and you see somebody who you thought was scareder, right?
Yeah,
and you're like, oh
exactly.
man, no, I gotta one up that person or whatever it is. So there's so many variables, when it comes to art. That's that the connection piece, I think, is super important.
We only have 6 minutes left. What do you guys want to cover that we haven't asked you, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we have some cool things in the works, I would say. We've been working on Harvey the Bus. So Harvey is a short bus who we have transformed into a portable recording studio.
Really?
So it's for recording podcasts. It's for recording music.
Since you brought up podcasts, let's pimp yours for a second. How do
Yeah.
people listen to your podcast?
They can listen to it pretty much everywhere. It's Own It SLC, Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, but what do they look
Stitcher.
for if you're Googling it, trying to find
It's called Own It SLC.
Yeah, Own It SLC.
Own It SLC?
Own It
Okay.
SLC.
There. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Sorry.
it's good.
Yeah, so we have a new series that we started in Harvey because we just got him ready auditorily. So the audio's ready in Harvey to produce podcasts.
That's an easier way of saying it.
And so we just did our third, and it's called the Shit Starter series. And what we really want to try to figure out is what pushes the shit starters, specifically in recovery field. So people that are kind of like pushing against the norms.
Yeah, they're like right on the edge, right?
Yeah, they're pushing the envelope.
In a good way though. Like
Yeah.
not just
I
not
love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love it.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're working on now, and we're actually looking to take him on the road and maybe go Moab, St. George. So yeah, we got some things going.
Yeah, we're gonna invite you guys. I mean, you guys probably need to come and
Yeah,
do-
Randall
You
said.
guys have started some
We'll
shit,
go.
I'm sure,
Yeah,
right?
good.
Oh yeah.
In your day?
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
What does Harvey the Bus look like?
He used to be a tailgate bus for the University of Utah,
Okay.
so he's painted black. He had some red Utes on him. We welded HB weld
JB
thank you.
Wells.
Bowler, like the top of a bowling trophy. So there's a bowler guy. He's on the
Really?
on the hood.
Yeah.
Inside, they gutted and insulated him before we got him, and so we just put some like shaggish burgundy carpet along the top,
That
and then we
sounds-
built some benches.
Wow.
I
Why the
collaged,
name
I
Harvey?
collaged all the benches with old Own It flyers, so he's got some history. The name Harvey because that was his name when we
Yeah, but it
we
fits
adopted him
very
from somebody
well.
who had already named him, and so we just
Okay.
Didn't want to mess up his identity.
Okay.
right. I mean,
All right.
yeah,
And he
he's
just
already been
looks
loved.
like it just fits him very well.
Okay.
So
How'd you come up with the title Own It?
don't know.
I do.
We sat in a coffee shop once.
Well, we wanted something that was gonna demand something of the performer and of the audience. So we talk a lot about personal responsibility to get out of that victim story and into an empowered story that you're gonna own. We really didn't want a bunch of like whiny stuff because I don't like listening to it, and we didn't want to
Oh,
make the
this
audience
happened to
listen
me.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like
And
to
that's
kind of
why I did drugs,
Yes,
because
exactly.
everybody did this to me.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so it's like it's only you. Like, what are you going to own? What do you have to say? And then also, there's a responsibility to the audience to own your ears, own what you're hearing, and own your reaction to it. So sometimes we ask a lot of our audience. So it's like owning maybe your prejudices, maybe your fears, maybe your judgments. All of those belong to you. So if you're there at a show, everything that happens is for you to own and, alchemize however you're going to. And it's important that we all arrive with that personal accountability. So we wanted it to be kind of like a strong title. And I feel like, and we were just kicking ideas around and, yeah, in the coffee
There it
shop.
was,
Own
coffee
it.
shop.
There it was, yeah.
And
And now I
it's
see it on
perfect.
like the back of buses and in people's like ads for business and stuff. So
Own it.
I don't know.
You should
Yeah.
have somehow
I don't know.
copyrighted that or
it.
We
something.
might need to do that. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's like the perfect name. It's
It
perfect.
is for now, yeah.
I admire what you guys do because I can sort of, having worked in TV, audience reaction mattered to me. And when I watched you guys, what's the last time? It was at the night before Recovery Days. And I guess it's what you described as I thought, God, they're not getting much response from the audience at first, and I felt uncomfortable for you
Yeah.
because you're trying to suck in the audience,
Right.
and I thought it's not working real well right now.
Yeah. That's
And-
the worst, isn't
and-
it? That's the worst feeling.
Well, but you've obviously gotten through that, and you're used to that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's easy as an audience member to be withholding, to say, you're not gonna get under my skin, or I'm not gonna listen to you. I do that. I mean, and maybe some of you guys do that sometimes too. And so that's part of the Own It is we're like, hey, audience, don't be withholding, don't be Scrooge about it. Like, be generous. Like
Yeah.
let them know that you're here, or don't come.
Well, that's why the
Right.
venue is so
It's true.
important, right? The lighting and all that stuff,
Sure.
because it's meant to relax people so that they can be receptive, Because lights are, it's like
Yeah.
even in here,
I'm
it's
on.
like, okay, I
They're
gotta
looking
do
at
stuff.
me.
Yeah, they're looking at me. So
Well,
Yeah, you got to be able to deal with the rejection. You know, you got to be able to push through what we've done. We haven't had to do it many times, but we have had to do it, and you got to do it anyway. So you got to push through it. That's part of the process.
Oh man,
you
yeah,
know?
we've gone through a couple of treatment centers where they're just like,
They couldn't.
Nope.
Yeah, they
Nope.
couldn't even do it.
Nope.
They can't even care at all.
we get in the car afterwards and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing?
We almost quit. We almost had to quit that one time.
Really?
Actually, we bought
It
a
is
bus
terrible.
afterwards.
That's what came from it. So
Yeah.
sometimes rejection, and if you can push through, then you create cooler stuff. So that's kind of what we found.
Go shopping if you get rejected. Go shopping, buy a big bus.
everybody hates rejection. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Yeah,
I-
thank
I-
you.
I think what's interesting is because we usually talk about the nuts and bolts of addiction and recovery, and this is sort of an aspect that I don't think a lot of people consider. So it's important what you're doing. So, and it's ownitslc.com. Okay, go there and check out their and you guys publicize your performances well in advance because
Yeah, honestly, we're not very good at promoting. So if you want to know what we're doing, you should just go to our website because
Okay.
Yeah.
we don't promote very well.
We do a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, we do put up things in advance if you're paying attention
right.
to us.
But
if
we
you're
don't
not,
we don't want to be those people with like an Instagram
They're-
post every damn day where you're like, just shut up.
Oh,
They're-
it's them again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and they're
true
like,
artists.
I'm really doing something important, and you should all care about it.
Yeah.
Like we
They're-
don't want to do that. So
But you are. So
They're-
It's
thank
hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to be purists in an age of
you.
the social age, but
Yes.
we try to do our best. So
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for being our guests, Sarah, Phil,
thanks for
Rachel. It's good to
Yeah.
see you all again.
Thank you guys.
And thank you for watching another edition of Odyssey House Journals.